it is 7:01. This is the Grafton School Committee. I'm the chair, Elizabeth Spinney, and I call the meeting to order. First on the agenda, we have public comment. If we have anyone who's here for public comment, I ask you, let's see, we have the mic up here on the table, so you can come up. Each person will have 2 minutes to speak. Just state your name and your address, and you're welcome to come up at this time. Thank you.
Good evening. Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Good evening. My name is Christy Kilbazinski, and I live at 3 Lottie Drive in Grafton. This evening, I would like to bring to the committee's attention Policy IGA, Curriculum Development. Part of this policy states that the school committee seeks to improve curriculum through an ongoing process of design, implementation, and evaluation. The reason I bring this up is because this afternoon, my 5th grader came home to tell me that he watched the movie Johnny Tremaine. For those of you who do not know that movie, you should ask your parents because it was released in 1957. It is a movie about the American Revolution. This movie is almost 70 years old and yet is still being shown in the Grafton Public Schools. I would dare any of you to find a 10-year-old that would resonate with a movie from the 1950s. I would also be shocked if no other multimedia movie or presentation about the American Revolution has been made since then. As a parent, it is disheartening to see that sections of the curriculum are still being used from when I was a student at Grafton Public Schools many years ago. This goes beyond today's movie and also includes books that are being presented in the classroom as well, from Winn-Dixie to The Outsiders, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and Freak Almighty, and many more. I would like to ask the committee that in accordance with the ever-changing world and with Policy IGA, that any material given or shown to students that was produced prior to the year 2000, which was 23 years ago, be reviewed. I would like you to evaluate and question why we are still using it. If the answer to those questions is only because we always have, then it is time to change. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to make a comment? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to general business. First up is summer programming. Jay.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you for welcoming us back. I know I always appreciate coming to the school committee and talking about all the great things we're doing. I am going to take a back seat in this presentation, but I did want to introduce you all to our co-coordinators for ESY, which last year was Bob and I, so hopefully these two are gonna, knock it out of the park this year for us for our summer programming for students with special education needs. So we do have co-coordinators, so I wanted to just describe a little bit what the difference between both, and their both name is Melissa, so we're calling it Melissa Squared, I don't know. So Melissa Johnson, she's currently our preschool team chair. She is going to be doing the kind of behind the scenes coordination. So she'll be doing student groupings, ensuring we have the right classroom placements, making sure that parents are notified and getting the notifications back from parents to make sure we know who's coming, who's not. All of that lovely behind the scenes work is Melissa Johnson. And then our on-site coordinator is going to be Melissa Wallace, who's the principal at South Grafton Elementary School. I know she presented not too long ago. And she is going to be doing all of our on-site staffing, ensuring that all the students have what they need in the program, making any last-minute changes in shifts, which always comes up. So we have really a dynamic duo here for success for our extended school year program. So I'm going to take a step back and let them present on what we've done thus far and what we have to go.
Awesome. So thank you so much for allowing us to come to talk about the extended school year program for this school year. So as you know, or as you might not know, the extended school year programming encompasses all the special education and related services that are provided to students with a disability. It's beyond the normal school year or instructional day of the school district. all of the services are in accordance with the child's IEP. And of course, it's at no cost to a parent or student. It really does meet the standards of the Department of Ed, and it's determined through the IEP process. So all of the kiddos who are coming to us for extended school year programming have that in their IEP as a service one way or another, and we'll kind of talk about the distinction as we go through.
So at the extended school year, all the programming will be at the Grafton High School. We actually had a nice tour today with Neil Tran and Shauna, thank you, looking at all the different spaces of where we're going to access for the summer school program. It will be run July 11th through August 10th. Monday, July 10th, actually, we're going to have the staff in to make sure the classrooms are set up and also have an open house for parents who have children in the program so they can come and actually see the classrooms. But the actual class will start on July 11th. And then, and I just said that, on July 10th is the open house.
Awesome. So just some programming changes for 2023 summer. Last year, the biggest change for extended school year was the move for all programming to Grafton High School. So that was a big change for last school year. I know that Nicole and Bob got a lot of feedback around that around that move. So we're trying to take all the feedback in and make those important changes based on parent feedback, based on staff feedback who worked the extended school year program. So some changes for this upcoming summer are for students who receive tutorial services, whether it's in reading, math, English language arts. Their service delivery is going to be a half-day session, as opposed to last year where on their IEP they might have seen 2 60-minute sessions. This year their sessions are going to be extended a little bit, so they're going to be slotted to a half-day session where they'll be able to receive their services in that format. And it's really just based on the individual need and their IEP. Of course, for 4-day, full day, and half-day programming will still be available for students based on their IEP needs. So there are some students who will come, those 4 half-day mornings, 4 half-day afternoons, or a full day, depending on their need.
So I will just note those two kind of, that change came across in an effort to get more attendance for our tutorial students. I know when Bob and I presented, we kind of talked about the attendance for our tutorial was fairly low. And of course, IEP teams have determined that there is a need there. So we want to make sure we make it very possible for those students to attend. So we did shift that programming to a 1-day, half-day, with the hope that there'll be more availability, and also allows us to provide transportation within our current schedule. So if transportation is a challenge for any parents, they'll have access to the transportation that's coming in and out at that schedule. So that was one crucial move we made to really try to get those kids that maybe we're missing because maybe that was a challenge in the past. And also that open house day. We got a lot of feedback from parents and also staff that they don't get the chance to meet the kids before the day one of the extended school year, and from parents they don't get to meet the actual teacher that's working with their student before the beginning of the extended school year. So that was a crucial component for us. It gives our staff a little bit more time to organize themselves and make sure they're ready for students, but also gives parents and students the opportunity to come in, see where their classroom is, meet their teacher, just like we do during the school year.
So as for timelines, I've already had meetings with all of the team chairs across the district in regards to students who have had ESY services in the past, as well as students who are going to be proposed for ESY services. So we've really taken a look at that caseload. I know meetings are still happening. So as services are proposed, those students will be added to class lists. We've identified those students, and exactly as it says here, the class lists and staffing assignments have been tentatively created. And I've actually just sent this past week emails out to staff who've indicated that they are interested in working.
So our next steps are we going to notify, again, the staffing of assignments. We're going to finalize room assignments, which we did that tour today. We got a blueprint of the high school, which we're going to highlight, and then create an Excel sheet to let the current staff at the high school, whose classrooms we are gonna utilize, know, so they can prepare for us to come in this summer. We will notify the parents and get commitment requests from the parents, so we know exactly how many students will be coming to the Grafton High School for this program. We're going to solidify all the transportation needs for the families and the students, and then we're gonna move in July 6th and 7th. We'll be going in and sweating, I bet, moving in, and then we'll have our open house right before we start July 11th.
So lots of moving parts. So that is our extended school year program overview, kind of in a nutshell. Does anyone on the committee have any questions?
So it looks awesome. It sounds like you got really good feedback, and I especially love the whole idea of the open house. And I think one of the challenges with ESY has been it's so different from the school year, and parents feel disconnected from it. So I love the concept of the open house. How are you feeling about staffing, both teachers and paras? Are you feeling comfortable about staffing levels? Or
Yeah, we had lots of interest in the
Good.
extended school year program. So Nicole and I actually had a chance to sit down and look at student need and look at who applied, and happy to say that we were able to fill pretty much all of the positions internally, which is awesome. So we're really trying to solidify and making sure that, you know, the staff who applied all got emails basically to say, here's the position we've slotted you to. Is that something that you would like to accept? So all week I've been getting emails from staff, which is awesome. And so I'm happy to say that it's really the internal staff that are interested in working our program, which is
awesome. And
what we
for
want,
the
you know?
and for the folks, for the kids who need the tutoring too, you're feeling, oh, that's great.
Yeah, yep.
One
Awesome.
of the things that we wanted is to have this kind of like a mini school, kind of like in September, when you come in, all the moving parts of, you know, proper, where your transportation is, where your classrooms are, an open house. We wanted to extend like the school year into a mini school year for these students, and that's one of the reasons why we're having the open house, is really to make it more like a kind of a mini school year for them.
Great.
Laura?
Thank you so much, and thank you for taking this on, like, first year coming in, like, this is awesome. I
2
love
feet
it.
in.
I love it. It's so great. This is kind of an obvious question, but, so I know it's IEP driven. What if there's families out there who think their child should qualify for end-of-year services and do not receive them? What should they do? Who should?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first point of contact would be the team chair in their building.
Okay.
So whether they've had their IEP meeting already or have not had their IEP meeting yet, definitely your first point of contact would be the team chair in your building. So definitely give a call to them. If it's something that warrants calling together the team, that's something that the team chair could definitely do and have a discussion, because of course it's a team decision whether or not those services are proposed.
Terrific.
A great question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I had a question about when the students arrive. And I don't know if was this one of your feedback things that I should have just not?
We've already thought of it.
Okay, so I'm curious to know, like, what you're changing, because I did hear a fair amount of chatter about it, and I was like, well, it was the first year that he was in the high school, I'm sure it's gonna be better next year. Can you share, is there a procedure? Is somebody gonna meet each child? Like, how's that gonna work?
So we met this today, and we have a new place where the students will be arriving at the high school, which I'm not really that familiar with, but it's the nursing section
yes.
of the high school. It's not gonna be the commons.
Yes.
Because we know that Parks and Rec is there, we also know enrichment is there, so they're going to be coming into the nursing section where they can just walk down and either go right or left. The parents will be going to park at the parking space and walk their children in if they choose to bring their child, and the buses will line up there. Staff members will go get the students off the bus and bring them into the building.
That seems much cleaner. Also, that door is sometimes referred to as the band door.
Oh, yeah, because the ensemble room's right there.
I like the band door.
Or the art door, or the chorus door, depending on what your child does.
Right.
We talked a lot today too about like signage,
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
that was,
Yeah.
I was there that day. It was, those first couple days were definitely chaotic coming in with the amount of students coming in for different programs and trying to figure out what students were there for what program and what staff needed to meet what student was, it was chaotic. So we're trying to separate that out. And Lisa will talk about enrichment, but we're making a move from that main area, that main door area. It was just too much, especially for some of our students with disabilities. So we definitely made that shift. We talked about that today. And then we talked about signage and how to direct parents there. And even talked about, people have volunteered to actually be out on the road when people are driving up and directing people where to go. So I think that that is something that's going to be crucial to easing that, that shared space at Grafton High School. It's a wonderful space. We just want it to be a little less chaotic, especially on that first day.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Good luck.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much for
Thank you so
coming
much.
in, and good luck with the program this summer. Next up, well, giving them a minute to organize teaching and learning report, pre-K to 6. It's
Oh,
just,
so
Just
this is
enrichment,
the other half.
it's just an, oh, this is
Yep.
summer programming part 2, okay.
You got it.
I was a little confused.
We have a lot going on during the summertime in
Alright.
Grafton. It's wonderful.
No, would somebody tell Melissa that there is air conditioned in the high
I
school, so she
almost
might not
did.
be sweating too much.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll let her learn.
Pleasantly surprised.
Somebody tell her to dress in layers. It's like hazing.
Or bring a sweater, right?
Seriously. Why am I so loud? Good microphone.
Know how to project.
Want me to do it?
Committee, maybe. Oh, there we go, yes. This one? Yeah, perfect, thank you. Well, thank you for having me, and I'm always excited to highlight the great programming that we have going on, especially during the summertime. I'm here to talk to you about our summer enrichment, but we also have some reading activities I'd like to highlight, and our EL programming as well. Thank you very much. So I'll start with enrichment. We started this back in 2019, took a year off or so for COVID, and now we are coming back pretty strong here. New this year, we're going all 5 weeks, and I'm very happy to hear that. We'll have the common area, and so that will be wonderful. We're going to run July 10th through August 10th, same as ESY. Normally, we do 4 weeks, and we start a week after, but we're going to go 5 weeks this year, Monday through Thursday again. And this year, we're offering 46 unique programs. That's up from 22 last summer. So it's really exciting. I'll show you a list of all the programs that we have soon, and it's they're great. They're fun. I wish I could sign up for all of them. We have 93 program slots. So some of our programs out of those 46 are offered multiple times. So that's up from 47 options for last year. And then as of April 9th, 42 programs have met the minimum requirements. I think last year at this time when I presented, it was like 9. And many others are very close. And we have 246 students registered, whereas last year at this time, you know, I'm all about the data, we had 157. So it's really exciting to see how the program is, you know, picking up some steam. So new this year, I'd like to highlight, we have a QR code, which is, if anybody knows, like tech is not my strength. So thank you to Kristen Perrone for the QR code. So now the registration process was some feedback I had gotten year after year from parents. So now it's all online, which is very exciting. So you can go right online, register for your programming. If the program is not being offered, but you think it is, based on the program guide, that means it's been full. So it's filled. So it's really a great way for parents to know in live time, real time, what is available to them. We are offering 2 programs for full day. We're going to give it a try. We have a cooking class full day, and we have a getting ready for kindergarten full day program, which is really, really exciting. We normally don't have a lot of programs for our 5-year-olds or incoming K, and this year we do. So it's great. Andrea Anderson will be teaching that for us. And then this year, I usually just let teachers offer whatever they want to offer, but this year I said, all right, twice, you can only offer your program twice. And it really forced some creative ideas, and that's why we've been able to offer so many different ideas. Instead of just every week the same classes over and over and over again, we've limited that. So here are some of our enrichment sessions, and most of these, I have to say, are new this year. We've got Slime Scientist, Shark Week art. We have a wide variety of art classes. Viva la France, and that's actually during some sort of holiday too, the week that she's offering it. Honeybees, which I think is, all of it sounds so exciting. We have some fitness fun activities. We're offering a math review. I usually get some feedback that they wish that there were more middle school programs, and this is a middle school program that's geared to them. We actually have 3 or 4 different middle school programs this year. Believe to Soar is back. That is empowering and enrichment around athletics. Time for recess and board games, mini musical, which I think was really fun. Like, we're certainly not going to compete with Apple Tree, but if you're looking for just to get your feet wet, like, this is a really good little program that we're offering. We've got Space Trek Under the Big Top, so they're going to do a whole big circus all weeks. We've got STEM programming, band for our current students in band. I think it's grade 5 and 6, and then origami. So that's enrichment. It's very exciting. So I want to thank parents for signing up. And I also want to thank Lynn Leofonte. She is going to be sending the bills out for us. She'll be taking care of all the billing. So I would like to thank her in advance for that task. So we're going to kick off the summer, though, in May. And we are once again bringing back North Grafton and South Grafton, our family make and take event that kicks the summer off. The library, we partner with the library for this event. Every year we get about 50 to 60 families. It's a really fun way to get excited to keep the learning going all summer long. New this year, we're going to try a Millbury Street and North Street event at Grafton High on Wednesday, May 17th. We are partnering actually with both of these. They used to be just literacy events, but we're going to partner with the math department as well. So the 2 departments are coming together, and we're going to offer a complete program for parents. And it's going to be an open house. So if you're on the baseball field from 6 to 7, that May 17th, you want to pop in from 7 to 7:30, please do. You do not have to stay the whole time, or if you're rushing to a game, pop in at 6 o'clock. We'd love to have you. We're doing a camping theme. We're thinking maybe some s'mores and some good times. So hopefully we will welcome families for that. And then I just want to remind everyone once again, we're doing the summer bingo for our incoming K and grade 1 students to keep the summer learning going. And again, this is not just reading. This is about learning all summer long. There's math activities. There's a lot of points for museums, everything that you can think of, you can earn a point for this summer. And then I'd like to thank Nicole Bless, our parent volunteer, who does all the layout work in the summer passport. A big thank you to her. And I'd love to thank South's PTO and North's PTG. They sponsor the $500 in Amazon gift cards. So we give every grade level a $50 gift card, and then there's 5 $10 prizes. So thank you very much. This would not be as successful without those organizations. And again, the purpose is to keep learning going. It's not just summer reading. We have decided, with the help of the library, we're going to pull out book suggestions. That seems to be a little bit confusing sometimes for parents. So we are pulling out the 3 or 4 pages of book suggestions and referring people to some websites for information and referring them to the Grafton Public Library as well. And then, again, new this year, you can submit your points online. You do not have to return anything. There will be a QR code. And you can, I'm going to overuse that, but that skill now, but you can submit all your points online now, and you don't have to worry about returning something in your child's backpack. And when the time comes, everything will be on the school's websites. We are going to do our Title I reading support mailing again. And again, a shout out to Lynn Leofonte. She mails those. So every 8 days or so, we hope our students in regular ed reading support will receive something from us. It's going to be either a handwritten letter from their reading teacher, an activity that will help them, and then books that they select before they go out to school. So it's exciting. The students like to receive mail. I like to receive mail. It's wonderful. And then there's Beth Julene. She has since retired, but we will be offering we invited 14 students currently in grade 1 to come on in for 8 days this summer. Renee Carlson is the North Street reading specialist. She will be working this year, and for about an hour and a half, they're just going to be working on those literacy skills, just dusting off the cobwebs, getting ready for grade 2. And then I just want to highlight some programming that Nancy Miranda is doing. She is excellent at building such a great community, and she is going to continue that during the summer. She's going to poll her students, send out a survey, and find out what type of activity they want to do to come together during the summer. And then she has an adult class as well that she offers, and they will probably be maintaining the gardens at the high school this year, just to have everyone come together and continue using the language and building that community. So thank you to Nancy Miranda for that as well. And then I just want to remind parents, we in Grafton support a lot of apps here, and we have Lexia for all our students in K through 2, Raz Kids, and then we also have Freckle for ELA and math that students can use this summer. And then I want to put in a plug for Grafton Public Library. They do an excellent, excellent job with their programming all summer as well, and anything you do at the library, you get points in your passport for.
All right, any questions from the committee? Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Laura?
Thanks, Liz. Thank you so much, Lisa. Great job as always. It's always wonderful to have you here. A lot of times, can you touch upon why we don't have summer reading, like a very strict summer reading program in the elementary schools, and maybe explain a little bit why you did take away the book recommendations? A lot of time we get feedback from some parents, because a lot of other districts you have to read these 4 books, do a report on them, X, Y, Z, and Grafton made a very conscious decision to do this learning passport. Can you maybe provide a little bit of history of that again?
Yeah, so I think we started the summer passport, I think maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And the idea behind that is, and I'm surprised I am not going to whip out my Scarborough reading rope, because when you just have students read, I talk about that everywhere we go, but all the 8 strands of that, 5 of those are language comprehension, and that's like building background knowledge, vocabulary. You can do that not just through a book. So by providing a book list or asking students to read certain books, there's a purpose for that, but it also limits students. We want to encourage families to learn all summer long in a way that gives them agency and allows them to explore maybe a passion that they don't get to explore 10 months a year while they're at school. So yes, we could say we're going to lock you in, these are the 4 books, and you can torture your kids at home and make them read them, and it ends up being a fight all summer long. Or we can give you 40 pages of ideas to build your background knowledge, build your vocabulary, and just make learning fun and not mandated. And as far as the list of books goes, we do a nice job of teaching students how to pick a book that's right for them. And when you're motivated to read the next book because you want to read the next book, that is so much more powerful. Research shows that is a better fit. So instead of us mandating a book because you're in 4th grade and this is the only books that you can read, allowing a student choice, research will show that's the better way to get kids involved in reading.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Any other questions? Laura?
So, great job. Presentation was
Thank you.
fantastic. I'm so excited about the breadth of offerings for the enrichments. For kids on IEPs who might have para support during the school year who, for whatever reason, aren't doing ESY, but they chose to do enrichment, are there ways to support them? Is there para support? Is there, how might they access some of the enrichment programs if they're not doing ESY?
Great question. I wish I highlighted it. Thank you. So if a student has IEP support with a para on their IEP, we honor that. We follow the IEP. So we will hire paras to work with students. We want them to be as successful as every student, to love the summer program. And with some para support, if we can make that happen for all of our students, I think it's great. So we do, yes, it's right in the registration. Please be honest with us when you register. Yes, I need para support. I cross-check the IEPs just to make sure that we make sure the ratios are in, that we're following the ratios, and we will hire paras.
Oh, fantastic.
Everybody benefits from that too, having an extra adult.
Any questions? I just want to piggyback on Laura's question. So it makes complete sense, your explanation about not providing the lists of books. I think maybe you touched on it during your presentation, but what about those parents who they're trying to put something in front of their student and say, why don't you try this one or this one? And they maybe have no idea what they should be presenting. What's a good resource for them?
So in the passport, there'll be some websites that they can go to. Like, so anything that's recently won an award is a great place to look. I think it's the American Library Association. Beth Galloway at the library sent over some links to include. So those will be in the passport as well. So they'll be able to do that. And of course, they can always turn to the Grafton Public Library. And with Google, you can just type in grade 2 book suggestions and lists and lists and lists will pull up. And then from there, I would encourage anyone to sit with their child and say, okay, these are 5 great books I would recommend for you. What sounds interesting to you?
Great, thank you. Any
Yeah,
other
just to
questions?
kind of piggyback on that if I could, you know, you can't ever underestimate the power of physically taking a child into the library and looking at some books with them. Because you will be surprised, parents, what your kids will gravitate to. It might not be what you expect. So mom going to the library and picking up books for kid, not going to be as successful as letting them pick out, oh, you want a nonfiction book? I didn't know you liked nonfiction. I think it's so key to get kids in the library because that's what they do in the classroom. They self-select in the classroom. So I think it's great to give them that experience. I wish we had like a bus or something that could pick up kids while mom and dad are at work and take them to the library and they could pick books and come home. But I know that's a pipe dream for another millennium.
I always think, I remember the bookmobile growing up and it would
Yeah.
come to the end of my street, or I'll see stuff like with like the bikes with the baskets. I'm like, wonder if I could do that all summer, like just ride my bike around,
Or even those
delivering
little
books.
libraries.
There's a lot of little libraries that are springing up in different neighborhoods around Grafton. So
Yeah,
people
that's a
should
great
look out
point,
for those.
too.
I know there's one on my street on Potter Hill, which is a little remote for some people, but you know, at the schools, in different areas, they're popping up. So
Yeah, I think we have like 10 or 11 in Grafton. Just, you know, the community barn. Like there's 3 that I try to maintain, right? Community barn, Millbury Street, and North Street are the 3 that pop up. But I know just from being on the Facebook groups, like the Buy Nothing will list all the different sites too. And I want to challenge people to redefine reading too. I love a good book, but like going to Wonderopolis every single day, there's a wonder of the day. That's reading, right? Like reading graphic novels or comic books, or there's so many things that that we can allow our children to pick from that have the same end result.
And audiobooks.
And
too, on that,
audiobooks.
Which you can download from the library, from your home,
For free.
for free.
And then just enjoy it, right? Like and work on comprehension. It's great.
I will say, not everyone says the same thing about graphic novels, but I will say it helped my daughter a lot, who was struggling reading in elementary school, and now she's doing fantastic. But graphic novels were the thing that she was attracted to. That's what she was drawn to. That and horses. So either one, but
I actually
both of
got a
those.
question about graphic novels recently about
Yeah.
being appropriate for the grade level. And I responded with, well, whatever gets a child to read and comprehend is appropriate for that child. It doesn't have anything to do with grade level. I mean, grown adults read comic books,
Right.
you know, it's all the same.
And then if you're concerned about it, get one for yourself and read along with your child.
Like To Kill a Mockingbird, which is an excellent graphic novel.
Great. Any other questions for Lisa?
I just read it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so
This looks fantastic.
Now there
All
won't be
right.
any copies available.
Now we're moving on to teaching and learning report, right? Pre-K to 6.
Percy Jackson, here, did all the graphic novels.
Yeah. Welcome, Mr. Wiltshire.
All right. Good evening, everyone.
Good
See
evening.
you. You got it.
So we are here tonight to present what we're doing with curriculum, planning, instruction, and data. Funny thing is, this is the 3rd time we've changed the date for this presentation. It was supposed to be back in early February.
A little bit of snow kept us
But
from.
yes, exactly. So we're glad to be here. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with data, because a lot of our professional development days have really been talking about data, and families have also seen lots of data this year. Our professional development, and then what we're doing with curriculum planning and instruction. So I want to start by saying it's really important that we remember that we are educating children, and it's the whole child. So we may talk about literacy scores, we may talk about math scores, but we want to talk about all data when we're talking about a child. So we want to make sure that we're not focused on one data point every time we're looking at children and making decisions about their instructional programming. We've been collecting data for a very long time. This is an example of the different types of data that we collect and the different times of the year that we're collecting data. We've really started talking about STAR this year because it's new to Grafton, but collecting data is not new to Grafton. We've always collected behavioral data, all types of academic benchmarking, DIBELS and F&P scores, our unit assessments, MCAS, access for our ELLs. So data is not new to our students or to our faculty. Anything?
No, I think just as you can see there, just as we tried to lay out, there are different points in the year where we're collecting data in order to use that information to make decisions on our instruction, identify students who need that intervention, but also the extension, which I'll touch on in a moment. So it's really a year-long focus for us.
And so as Steve said, as we're looking at the data, we're looking at, is our core instruction working? If it's not working, what types of intervention do we need to add? What types of extension do we need? And then what type of professional development and coaching do our faculty need so that we can get the best out of what we're supposed to be doing during the day? The committee had asked for some examples of what we're looking at when we look at STAR data. I want to highlight that this is January data. So we will be testing again at the end of May, beginning of June. So this is a snapshot of where students were at in January. This here is an example of what our math STAR achievement data looked like. The green are representative of students who exceeded the expectations for the grade level. The blue, meeting expectations. Yellow is partially meeting, and red not meeting expectations. When we look at this, we really look at, is our core curriculum working? Who are those students that it's working for? For the green, there's those students who are exceeding the expectations of the core curriculum. How are we extending their learning? What are we doing for those students? And for the yellow and red, those are the students that we need to intervene with. So what is it that we're doing? When we looked and we dug deeper into the data, we were happy to see that the students that were in the red, we have already identified. There were no surprises with the red. With the yellow, those are students that we need to do a little bit more intervening with so that we can get them up to meeting expectations. And really the goal is to get our students into the blue and the green by the end of the year. Here's an example of what our ELA STAR data looked like. Another picture that we look at when we're looking at data is the growth averages. So we're looking at how did students grow from the first time that they took STAR to the second time that they took STAR, and we're measuring it against students who are at that same level back in September, October.
Right.
The state defines good growth average as anything over 40%. And you can see here that our students fell between 40 and 60% in growth.
And I think it's important to note, as you look at the students as a whole, you're going to have some in the 99th percentile, you'll have some in single-digit percentile, so that collective average at each of these grades shows that we're right above, at 50 or right above 50, and in the fourth grade case, almost at 60. And again, this is a measure that MCAS uses as well, so as we get more years away from MCAS, I think some of that data will become more relevant as well, because we'll have multiple years of tests to compare to. And right now, we only have 2 tests, so it'll be interesting to see how that growth projects the more times we take the STAR, because the more times you take it, the more accurate it's going to become to showing students' growth.
And so this is where our students were at in math in January, and in ELA, it's a similar picture between 40 and 60% of growth, and we were happy to see that our students are on the right trajectory. Other data that Lisa Rice typically highlights for us We love when Lisa comes, I'm not sure if she's still here, she is still here. We love when Lisa comes and defines what this data means for us. Again, this is in January, and the expectation is that, or the hope is that our students are, 100% of our students are at benchmark by the end of the school year. And you can see in kindergarten, we are well on our way. We're very proud of our kindergartners back in January to see where they were at. And then this is the oral reading fluency for grades 1 through 6. And again, our hope is that by the end of the year, 100% of our students will be at benchmark. We know that that is a lofty goal, but that is certainly the hope. Anything there?
So I wanted to talk a little bit about growth and achievement because they both measure two different things. Our achievement's really looking at how our student is doing at that moment compared to where they should be, and then growth is measuring, again, over time, how they're growing compared to peers that scored similar to them in past years, in past assessments. I like this view here as in a quadrant, so when we combine both data points, what we really want to see in the top right there, as many students as possible, high growth, high achievement. That shows us that they are mastering the skills and they're growing at a higher rate than a typical peer. We do see a lot of students maybe have some lower achievement, those partially meeting students. If you think back a few slides to those yellow students, if they have lower achievement but they're making higher growth, that means they're closing the gap. So that's also a positive area we like to see. And then the top left there, you'll have your high achievement but low growth. And that's probably the most concerning quadrant for me, is that when you have kids that are meeting the standards that maybe at an exceptional level, but they're not growing. So I think it's indicative of that we need to put more extensions in for those kids. So it's good that they're meeting the standards. Yes, we're excited about that, but we're just concerned that we're not meeting them. And then, of course, low achievement, low growth. That one is really where we're concerned that they're lower achievement, they're low growth. That is going to be our highest area of need of students. But it's not, I don't want to overlook that top left either. So during one of our professional development days with the staff, we actually used the STAR data to place kids, and the STAR reports does give us the opportunity to have a visual where the kids are plotted on here for teachers to see exactly where our students are falling. And as you can guess, they're all kind of close together in that middle. There are some outliers, but we have a mixture of kids in all four quadrants. It was a really good exercise for the teachers to do and really compare that achievement and growth. And we did that in collaboration with this particular model, which is the RTI, Response Intervention Model. It's been around for a very long time. But this model looks really at the interventions for students. So you have your core instruction that all the students get in the green. You have your Tier 2 supports in the yellow, your secondary, that would be our Title I instruction. We also offer different Tier 2 supports, RTI models for speech and language and OT and things like that. And then, of course, in the red, your smallest number of students that are on IEPs that are getting very intense, very frequent interventions on a day-to-day basis. And that model typically is about how many students, if you can imagine, should be there. What we asked our teachers to do, though, was kind of rethink that model. And this is a new model that's kind of coming out for teachers, is that, yes, you do have that RTI triangle on the left side, but you have a whole nother group of students that are on the right side, too. We're very fortunate. A lot of our students do very well. So we have kids that are in that small group in Tier 3 of extension that maybe are performing 1 to 2 grade levels above where they should be. We have kids that are not quite there, but they're above their grade level. And then we have a whole big group right on grade level. And as we know, we spend a lot of time talking about our students with interventions and what we do for them. So it's really about looking at all of the students and making sure they have all of what we're covering everything that they need. So our teachers then took that same data that we had from the Renaissance, and they began thinking about where their kids fall on this, and how does your instruction look in the classroom? What enhancements can you make? What accommodations, modifications can you make? And it was a really great activity, teachers walking away looking at that particular data. But it's not just our PD days. We also have a number of opportunities for our teams to meet and look at student data on a more regular basis. K1 recess meetings that Jenny DeRost and Lisa Rice run at North and South Elementary School. We're fortunate to have coaches, Meg Cunningham, Sarah Hanna, in our buildings for math that are frequently meeting with our teams, planning instruction, looking at student data. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Kristen Perrone as well, and embedded PD data use throughout the year. I wanted to talk a little bit more about professional development because those half days are very, very critical, and we've really taken the approach this year to have a laser focus on data using the Renaissance Star Assessment. It's new to us, so that our teachers are familiar with the language, they're familiar with how to analyze it, and then coupled with that, particularly around math with the implementation of Envisions, making sure that teachers have time to use that data to inform their Envisions implementation. So I think that hand in hand, that's gone really well. We like that model a lot, and as in a few slides, it's a model that we want to replicate moving forward that I'll share. We also redesigned our new teacher workshops, which I'll highlight in just a moment as well. We have grade level meeting data to look at those annual data points, DIBELS, and things such as that. And then coaching cycles, making sure that we're identifying kids, making sure we progress monitoring those students to make that our interventions are working. And that's an every 6 to 8 week period, and our coaches are very involved in that process as well. Also want to highlight that part of our approach for the half day has been combining new learning with application. A lot of times professional development is a lot of new learning, but then there's no time to actually do anything with that new learning. And so we've really designed, I think, a good model that we're introducing to our staff, our teams, some of these new components to our curriculum and our data collection, but then making sure they have time to actually discuss as a group. We've been doing that at North Street and Millbury Street with each other. Our fourth, fifth, and sixth grades have gotten together. Our second and third grades come together each time. And I think the end result is that the teachers are feeling it's meaningful for them, and that it's also impacting their instruction in the classroom. Wish we had, always could use more time, but.
And K and 1 are also
And K
getting
and 1.
together at North Grafton
yeah.
and South Grafton. And we really have been fortunate in that Steve, myself, Lisa Rice, Jenny Juras, Jay, Tracy have collaborated and with the building administrators designed this PD and getting feedback from the teachers and then implementing it the next PD day. It's been really helpful, and the teachers have been very thankful,
Yeah.
appreciative of that, especially with the new math curriculum. And
Yeah.
Steve will be talking a little bit later about ELA and our ELA curriculum work that is coming up, and we'll have that same model for next year as well.
Absolutely. These are some of our new teacher workshops, and again, we revamped that this year, really thinking about what do our new teachers need the most to be successful at different points in the year. They have support from their mentors, they have support from their building administration, but then time with each other. So in the beginning of the year, it's all about the first 6 weeks of school at the elementary level. How do you set up your classroom? What routines are in place? The structures, the materials, everything that you're going to do for the next 10 months need to be developed and implemented in those first 6 weeks. Right off the bat, communication with families is very important to us. So what types of communication do you have with your families? How frequent are you doing it? Is it a newsletter, an email, Seesaw, all the different ways that we communicate. And then in October, we got into right away looking at that data so that they could use information to learn more about their students, make sure that they're informing their instruction, plan their units. And then, of course, we come up at a time of the year where report cards and conferences come up fast. And for new teachers, that's a very big task. And in a lot of cases, if it's their first year, it's the first time they're doing those things independently. So we gave them a working session to talk about how conferences are run, what should you highlight for families, and then actually bring some report cards and write them, particularly the comments, with input from veteran teachers. And I think that went really well. We focused on all the different supports that we provide through the RTI model. What are your students doing when they're leaving your classroom and going to these places? What are they working on? And then how can you enhance that in your own classroom? Then behavior modification. We're helping them with their evaluation as well. It's submitting evidence to their evaluators. And then we just most recently did another data drill down with some of the recent data we had from January, February, And then we have our last one coming up that's really just about closing the year, bringing closure. What are all the different tasks that come with the end of the year? And there obviously are a lot. But we really want our teachers to feel supported. We want them to feel like they have the skills and to stay in, that role for a long time. And it's not just what we're doing here in the district. Continuing education has really picked up since, I would say, over the last year, I'd say. So a lot of teachers, I think Kristen was telling me that over 200 teachers are taking courses right now and submitting for that. So it shows us that they're really, back out there getting that learning on their own. We send our staff to workshops throughout the year, conferences, so that we're trying to stay up on the new pieces that are out there.
And one of the good things with the pandemic and remote learning, a lot of these graduate level courses and workshops and conferences are online, and so teachers can do them at their own leisure. And as Steve said, we had, I think to date, we've got 200 graduate level courses already been taken this year. So that's fantastic that our teachers are out there and really have that desire to learn.
So kind of like what's next, I think, is Kristen and I wanted to share a little bit. And it's more like a what next and what's happening, because back when we designed this presentation a few months ago, we're trialing Freckle, which I'm going to explain a little bit more. You might have heard about it, but Freckle is an online program, differentiated program for students that works with Renaissance hand in hand to have students develop foundational skills that they need in order to move forward with wherever they are in their learning. And we are trialing ELA in math, but we're most excited about it for math. There are a lot of ELA apps that are out there in programs, Lexia, Reading A to Z, Raz Kids, Epic, and others. Math doesn't have as many choices, or the free options are not that great. So we're really excited to have Freckle as a trial through the end of this year, and looking forward to getting teachers' feedback, informing a decision next year. As Kristen mentioned, we have started convening curriculum councils because we definitely believe there's some work in this area to be done. DESE has some new ELA requirements that they'll be enforcing not next school year, but the year after. And that is similar to the math program that needs to be vetted and approved by the state, that it meets the state standards. So we met last week, and I give credit to Lisa behind me. Did a great job organizing that and running that. We had teachers from across kindergarten through grade 8 together looking at curriculums that have been approved through DESE, through their Curate site, CURATE. You can learn about all the different programs they've evaluated there. Had great conversations across those vertical groups that we had, and are inviting 4 of the programmers, the vendors, in this week to make some final decisions on a pilot for next year. And again, DESE is expecting us for the fall of 2024 to have one of these programs in place, which will, I think, in many ways align ourselves with the science of reading in a lot of ways, and just enhance our ELA instruction. Additionally, there's, I think, a need to look at science and social studies as well. The nice thing about these ELA programs we're looking at is that they do tend to have a focus on social studies topics. So a lot of the stories that are going to be read are nonfiction and based, and have a lot of those social studies standards that need to be touched on at those grade levels. So that's an added benefit of that work as well. I don't know if you want to add anything else about that. We're also trialing Second Steps in 2 to 6 right now. Second Steps is social emotional learning curriculum. We already have responsive classroom in a lot of the ways that we work with students, our morning meetings, very similar to K1. K1 last year did the same with Second Steps, but it's new to us in early March, I would say, late February. So we're beginning to use some of those lessons, and I think that it's really going to be a helpful tool for some of those SEL components. I know kindergarten and first grade's also implementing some PBIS strategies, and We really are in the process now and have been really going through it, looking at the professional development for next school year, again, with a year-long focus, so that we have going into the summer, knowing exactly what we want to do, what all of the half-days next year, and again, following that model that we had this year as well. Continuing to look at our Tier 2 intervention and extension, how does that look in particularly mathematics, I would say. And then, further with our PD opportunities, how can we design more of an EdCamp model for teachers where they're able to look at a variety of offerings and then select what they feel like they need for that particular moment. So there's definitely a lot on there, but I know that I think we all feel the same, that we're working with curriculum. We've come a long way this year, and I'm excited about the work that is to come. And I think we have a model that we've started this year that's really going to allow us to really move forward with these action steps. Yeah. So a little bit more about Freckle. As I shared, it's independent, it's adaptive, which means it changes. So if kids are showing the program that it's doing well, it's going to give them more difficult concepts to work on. If they're struggling, it's going to pull back on those concepts for them as well. The nice thing about it, though, is it doesn't take away the teacher's freedom. They can still assign specific content for students, how they see when looking at the data, or if they're working on particular fractions unit, they can still go in and say, you have to do this, which is nice.
And I think building administrators communicated with families this last week about Freckle and asking families to allow students to do this independently. There are, and Steve I think will show in a few slides, that students can get help through Freckle. And if you're helping your student, what's happening is it's bumping them to a higher level. And so the teachers are not necessarily getting accurate information about their student, but getting information about how maybe the family performed on that Freckle assignment.
As I shared too, it's linked to STAR assessment. So when they take that Renaissance STAR test, it's using that data point to then inform where they need to be in the program. So it's another way of just layering that data and putting kids in a place where they're working on skills that they need to work on. And I think that's one of the best features of it.
And I think just like any other assignment that students are doing at home, if there's extreme frustration, the family should stop the student and just send a note in to the teacher, and don't have the student continue to be frustrated.
Yeah. I drew this is the teacher dashboard, it's what they see, but I put it there as a reminder for myself to share. The nice feature about Freckle is that it also has built-in accommodations. So you can turn on audio for students and other features on an individual basis. So when we look at our students that have that accommodation on their IEP, we're able to go in and set that in the dashboard for them. So again, it just helps to layer those accommodations for students and make it meaningful for everyone. This is what it looks like for a student in the math side of things. It'll have a question, obviously, on the right-hand side. This is a hint, so they'll give them a hint and show them an example. They also could watch a video that walks them through how to solve it, and I'll show that in a moment.
This is one of the upper grades.
Yeah, this is one of the upper grades, yes. So, yes, we should add that. This is not second grade.
It's not second grade.
You can see you're all trying to solve it right now.
Right.
But the tools, the interactive tools of it, I think are really helpful for the kids. It's not just, there are other math programs like this, I should say, that just list problems and then the kid has to have a piece of paper next to them to solve them. It's kind of like a worksheet that they just put on the computer. This is intended to be an interactive tool for the kids. So you can see they can write right on it if they choose to, but those are all the tools on the right there. Now you can see them. There's a hint, there's a video, there are shapes and other objects they can use as well. And they're able to just do that, interact right with the screen if they want to. So the idea is that there's a placement, there's practice, there's more data, and then it adjusts. And it just continuously goes through that cycle. And the piece that's not captured here is that the teacher at any point could disrupt that and say, no, I think they need to be here, or I want them to work on this first. And so the teacher still has that ability to have the oversight. And then it gives us more data than we probably know what to do with. But these are just some of the data points that you can get from Freckle usage, sessions, and minutes. And I think it's important that we look at that because we don't want kids, particularly in the classroom, using this as their only tool, right? So we want to monitor how many minutes the kids are on it. Since they can work on it at home, in theory, the kids could spend hours at home doing it if that's what they wanted to do. It gives us both growth and proficiency or achievement scores. So again, aligned with all those data points we talked about earlier around domains or particular standards. And again, we can really drill down and look at specific skills that as a whole kids are struggling with, and then reteach that in the classroom. So it really gives us more in the moment data to inform instruction. And that was just a little quick piece on Freckle. And questions?
Any questions? Amy?
I have a question. So Freckle is used in the classroom, but also at home?
It can be used in both, yes. So students can access it through their Clever account. And right now we're encouraging teachers, since it's new to them, to really build it into their math workshop rotations so that it's just a component of really the independent time that kids have. And then kids could go on at home in their Clever accounts and access Freckle there too, if they'd like to. And a letter was shared this week with, I think most parents, if they haven't received it yet, I would imagine it's going out this week, that just kind of describes what Freckle is and how it should be used at home if you, again, want students to use it at home. I think we have to, as we finish the trial, determine what are the expectations kind of across the district for Freckle use.
And that's what I was going to add, that at the end of this trial, we'll be meeting with teachers and students and getting their feedback, and then really determining, because we don't want students on screens,
Right.
you know, for hours on end after school or even in school. So we want to make sure that we're balancing that and finding out where Freckle makes the most sense.
I guess my concern is only that I hear so often now, just from reading online interactions with parents, that I don't know what happened to all the laptops and computers we had during COVID, that personally owned ones, not the ones we lent. There's a lot of families like literally have phones and that's it. They don't have a device at home that their child can use to do something like this. So I'd be worried about the equity there. And I don't know that that's necessarily your problem to solve at this point, but I would be looking down the road to say, you know, do we need to think about loaning laptops out again if this is going to be part of the curriculum? Because we definitely want kids to practice if they can. And I'm looking at this interface and thinking there's no way that's going to work on a phone.
So we do have devices for students
Okay.
for at home, and we have the one-to-one devices for six and up.
6 and up.
And then
yeah.
fifth grade has them in
In the
their
room, yeah.
classroom. But you are correct, we are looking at accessibility and making sure that it is equitable for all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any questions?
I had one more.
Yeah.
On the RTI model, the rethinking the RTI model, I just want to make sure I understand it. Are the two green pieces technically together as one? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I had a couple questions. I'll start with Freckle, since that's what we've been talking about most. I wanted to hear a little bit more about, Kristen, you said with the Freckle at home, you said something about not wanting parents to get too involved with the kids and helping the kids do the work on Freckle because it was sort of skewing the data. But I would just challenge that and say, you know, there's just like you would help with homework, there's parents who are sitting there trying to help them explain, and they're learning a little bit more. And maybe the data is as a result of that extra learning that the parents are helping to provide while they're there. So it's
Interesting you say that, because Steve and I had that very conversation this
Yeah.
evening, because Steve was saying he helps his daughter
Yep, I
on a
cheat.
different program. But we were saying that the difference is, just like you said, helping and working through and explaining what the concept is, so then his daughter can go and do that independently. So you're absolutely right. It would be just the same as, we want to avoid the parent helping or an older sibling helping and just giving the answer. as opposed to the learning piece of it.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. It's great if families want to work on problems and concepts together. I think that's fantastic. I just don't want them to think my student is frustrated, so I'm going to help them. The answer is,
Oh, yeah.
50 or,
But you're not
that sort of-
discouraging parents from
No,
getting
no, no,
involved
not
in
at
it.
all.
Yeah. Okay,
The
okay.
more math they want to do together, I'm happy for that.
Okay.
Yeah, the example I use with my daughter, and she's a 5th grader, so kind of right in the wheelhouse here of this is if she comes across a skill she doesn't know, or and she's fortunate that she does skills a little bit above grade level, so they haven't done it in the classroom always, and so I try to use the first example as a model and then pull back, and I think that's just what we're hoping is that. You know, we're not sitting next to, I don't want to sit next to her and help her with every problem, because if I were, that should be telling the system that she's not ready for that yet. She needs more work in some other area. But more often than not, just that kind of overview allows her to then go on and she does okay, and then, you know, she's got it. But, yeah, I think it's that give and take.
Sure, yeah. And then my second question was, you talked about the switch from responsive classroom to second steps.
Yeah, not a
And
switch.
Not a switch, okay, so you're adding,
Yes.
it's not a replacement.
Yeah,
Okay.
responsive classroom, I think responsive classroom does a really great job with common language. So you've probably heard of logical consequences, things like that. We have morning meeting that has a greeting, has a share, and those components. But what responsive classroom, I don't think, provides us our actual tangible lessons, activities for kids to do, you know, either in morning meeting or in a community meeting, a classroom community meeting that has social stories that are built into it around different topics, you know, how to handle emotions, or making sure how do we collaborate in groups and work together, and kind of tying in our core values as well, all of those components into one. And responsive classroom doesn't really provide that bank of information. It does a really great job of providing the structure of those pieces, but I think that this gives us another level for teachers to access. And what's nice about it is that the lessons are laid out very nicely for teachers. They're able to look again at what their students are struggling with. Is it peer relationships? Is it
Rumors. I think you did
rumors?
with sixth
Yep.
grade.
Size of the problem. You know, they're overreacting to small problems. The teacher can go in and look at the resources, the lessons that are available, and pull from it, and use that in the moment to respond to whatever they're seeing with the students at that time.
So it provides a social story, and then they can discuss, how
Yep.
was it resolved? What can we do? What are we
Yep.
seeing in the classroom?
I see.
But yeah,
Thank
not
you.
taking it away. I think
Yeah,
we really
okay.
like the responsive classroom piece. So,
Okay,
Yep.
great, thank you. Did you guys,
I did.
you thought of something? Luna?
So when Amy brought up the RTI model, it
Yep.
sort of sparked for me a question about, you talked a little bit about extension, particularly for kids who are maybe high achieving but not growing as quickly. Can you talk a little bit about what that might look like? So obviously something like a freckle will help push them, but what else might be happening in the classroom to help,
Yeah.
extend for a kid who needs more challenge?
Yeah, and we do have kids that are, performing quite high. And again, I'll use Lisa as an example. She's been working with our 5th grade classrooms with some students that have shown that they're working above grade level to do little independent research projects and developing, really diving into that so that their end product is a research-based presentation for the class to share. That's just one example. I think Freckle allows us to do that with math, and I know that Jenny DeRost is also in the process of enhancing enrichment activities for our 5th graders as well. So I mentioned it because I think it's an area we can grow in. I think it's often not an area that gets enough attention because the thinking is that, well, they're achieving, they're meeting the standard, they're okay. And they are, that's a good thing. I don't want to say that that's not, but we want to make sure we're, again, to Kristen's point at the start, looking at the whole group and holistically making sure kids are getting what they need.
And our math team currently, I tasked them with polling the teachers and finding out what are your greatest enrichment activities for each of your units. And so they're pulling that all together so that they can then share it out as a common resource. And then also looking at units to see where are their holes? Where don't we have enrichment activities for, and what might those activities look like? And we have, as Steve said, a group of fifth graders that are working with some interventionists on the extension end for that as well. So it's work in progress.
It's great, though.
Laura, did you have something?
That was my question.
That was your question. I just have one, perhaps final question then. I just wonder, now that you're doing the STAR assessments and you're seeing the data, you showed the graphic that had the number of kids who were in the red, and you said really no surprises there. Do you think, now that you've gotten this data back, has it been helpful? Were there any surprises that redirected your efforts in one way or another after getting this, versus just what you've already observed or had tended to observe in the classrooms?
I think for me, it was the growth area in the quadrant, and really looking at students, right here.
Yeah.
Making sure that we're looking at students and where it is that they fall, because I think sometimes we look at achievement, we say, oh, they're meeting the benchmark, they're at grade level, we're good. But if a student is at grade level and they're not making any growth, then we're not really meeting their needs. Just like if a student is not at grade level and they're not making growth, we're not meeting those needs. So we really need to make sure that we're looking at, why is it that we're not meeting their needs? What are their needs? How, what domains are they in? Because this just lumps them into one category. Then we really drill down to look at, what domain is that? What activity do we have? What entry skills are they good at? And let's get them to the next level. What scaffolding might we have? I don't know about you in terms of data that was surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I just I've loved having the data in such a meaningful way, and we can spend so much time, but I think the part, I think you touched on it, was those students that are not meeting expectations, there were no surprises, which I think just was reassuring to us that our processes of identifying those students are in place and are working. I'm really curious to see how this plays out, because when there's obviously a lot we can do with this data, but when you look at our students from a national perspective, they're actually higher than what this would be. It would be a different graphic, but when you look at it from the expectations that Massachusetts sets, it is a higher standard. And I think that's a good thing. So I'm curious to see the correlation between MCAS testing and the standards and in our STAR, because our STAR testing in the fall was very similar, aligned to our results in the spring of last year. So if that's the case, I feel like we should see some good growth this year in our students. And because this data that we saw in January showed marked improvements from where our students were in the fall. So I think that my hope is that another half a year continues to show that. And we are right now in the midst of MCAS testing. So
The other thing I think that was very exciting for us in looking at this data is the coaching cycles that Steve mentioned. So we were able to identify pockets of students in particular classes and deployed our interventionists or our coaches into those classrooms and co-taught with the teacher for 6 to 8 weeks. And then we looked at how did those students grow with that intervention? Was that helpful? And the teachers were reporting that it was great. It was another adult in there, another set of eyes, more ideas on how to meet the needs of the students. And that was, I think, another positive of the data.
Great, thank you. Anything else?
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Great
coming.
to see you.
Good to see you.
yeah,
Come back in the fall. More data.
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so if the committee doesn't mind, I thought we'll switch things up a little bit since it's getting on about 8:15. We've got a junior in high school. It's April. I know what life is like and how your days and your nights are. Would you like to go next with your student rep report?
So I guess today we had sophomores and juniors had their college and career fair, which went well, I think. And then for upcoming events, Thursday there's the induction for Computer Science Honor Society at 6. And then after that, I think the biggest events are prom, and then the last day of school for seniors is May 28th.
26.
26, sorry. And then I don't think there's anything else.
Okay, great. Thank you. You're welcome to stay, as always, but I just wanted to
Thanks, Anita.
get your report out of the way so you could sneak
Yeah.
off if you wanted to. Superintendent report, do you have anything?
Yes, I have a few things. I need to start with some very sad news. Yesterday, the Grafton Public Schools in the North Street Elementary School community suffered a great loss with the passing of Lori Izquierdo. Lori, as you may know, she served as a paraprofessional in our schools for the past 15 years. She was a Grafton resident with 2 children who went through our schools. By all accounts, Lori was an absolutely wonderful educator and even better person. She's going to be greatly missed, and I ask that we all recognize a moment of silence in Lori's memory. Thank you. And since we have Steve here, I also just wanted to recognize and thank Steve Wiltshire, Mandy Lape, the entire North Street community for the way they handled a obviously incredibly difficult situation midweek with a lot of students and staff members who were very connected to Lori. They handled a really tough situation beautifully. So many thanks to them. All right, I'll transition to not terrible stuff. Mean Girls, Kristen and I had the chance to attend 2 weekends ago. Feels like forever ago.
Is it really?
Was it 2? Yeah, 2 weekends ago. And our own Maroska Gohar played a lead role. Couldn't have done better. Super, super impressive. So congratulations to our entire drama program. Spring sports is up and running at the high school. GMS opened up their registration, I think today, and they'll start up after the break. I attended that career fair that Invita spoke about. It was organized by Jen Cummings, our career counselor. It was awesome. We had students, obviously the Grafton High School students. We had students from Sutton and students from Millbury attend. Over 60 universities and colleges were represented. It was really pretty awesome.
Did you find a new career?
I didn't. I couldn't even. I mean, it was. Kids were really. When I went way back when, there weren't 60, but everybody would just stand in the middle and just look at each other. They were like occupied. Like you couldn't have. It was really impressive.
Well, they've got to impress those college
Yeah,
admissions
they're
people
pretty good at it.
these days.
But the kids were asking really good
Tie those
questions.
ties.
I was really impressed. And then lastly, I did visit the GAIN program today. Chuck Brown is just on fire. Bread just all over the place when I was
Not on
there.
fire, though.
No,
No,
not
no,
yet. We're
nicely
doing some electrical
toasted,
work to make sure that
nicely
doesn't
baked.
happen. Getting his giant mixer going. That's a next project. But he's really up and running. Had a couple people working with him. When I was there for the 15 minutes, there were at least, 8 to 10 people coming in. He said on Saturday morning, I think it was 150 people were lined up before 9:30. So he's doing great. We already have some students doing work with the bakery. What's important to keep in mind is that's not going to be overnight, in that we went through it was well worth it, but a very tiresome process of getting this all up and running. So our students had to commit to internships for either the whole year or 2 half-year chunks. So they can't just say, forget it, stop and shop, I'm out of here. I'm all bread guys all the time. They are doing a lot of work, but we're going to see much more of that as they transition into the summer and next year. But Chuck couldn't have been happier with the kid piece, with the bakery. It's all coming together, and it was great to see. And I think that's all I have.
Okay. Questions for Jay?
Yeah, you just mentioned the summer. Are we gonna have students working there over the summer too?
Well, they have their summer program.
Okay, oh, cool.
So they just because you're in our GAIN program doesn't mean you're locked into the baking part.
Right,
We could
right.
have kids that's just not their thing for whatever reason. That's wonderful. So we'll always have internships outside. But Brandon comes to mind. He's already like, a little baker. My guess is he'll go full bore in the summer program once he finishes his current internship. So, yeah.
Any other questions for Jay? No? Okay. All right, thank you very much. Next, future agenda, scheduled planning. Anyone from the committee want to, Laura, do you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't see over
I
there.
have my hand up. Sorry.
Yeah. Yes, Laura.
I would like to recommend that we do a review of our legal counsel. We had talked about it a few years ago, and then I think the pandemic hit, and we didn't do it. So I
When you
think
say
it'd be-
review, you mean a formal, a review, like
Yeah,
we do
yeah,
for
we
the
discuss,
superintendent
we
every
take
year?
a look
Yeah,
at, no,
okay.
not a review
Not
of
that,
them.
just a discussion?
A discussion and see if we want to, look at hiring other legal counsel. So part of it, I guess, could be an evaluation. I'm not sure if this committee has enough. That would have to probably come from Jay. But take a recommendation of other law firms that might assist us in the future. And that doesn't mean that we don't want to continue with the one we have, but I think it's good practice to just take a look. We've been with Merrick O'Connell for a very long time, predates me.
Say at least 20
predates
years.
Jay, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So is that something, looking at the schedule, would you like to see that on the agenda for next meeting?
I think so. I think what I'd like, because we can't discuss it now, is
Yeah.
perhaps talk about the process, and maybe that's making a subcommittee or something. Like, I don't think this committee as a whole is gonna sit here for an hour and
Yeah.
get that done, but just get it on, and then maybe
good
not the
idea.
review, but it's the process.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And then go from there.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll
That
be a
sounds
quick
good.
agenda
Yeah.
item.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for talking that through with me.
Do I have anything to add to that? Any thoughts? No.
Jay just put his hand up.
Yeah, sorry. I thought we'd moved on. A different topic.
Yeah.
Nothing on legal. I was looking for some clarity from the committee as to how the committee might want to approach my evaluation. We have it as a placeholder on the 25th, so next meeting. We don't have, historically, over the past few years, the effort's been made to have that evaluation done prior to the election. Because in a few years,
We
we
have the
didn't have
same
that. We'd have a couple people who I had barely met doing the evaluation. One thought, I've been working on my self-evaluation. I hope, my goal was to have it done by this Friday, but I think definitely by next week, I could get that to you. My recommendation or one thought would be that I would present, basically run through my self-assessment on the 25th. You'd already have my self-evaluation, and that gives the committee until on May 9th, you could actually do the formalized process.
Yeah, and that's before the election.
Right.
So
That's
we'll have
correct.
Graciela will still be here.
And everyone help me remember, in that time period between the 25th and May 9th, is that when we've usually sent out the document and everyone's commented and that's the time period we've done that?
And then
Is that
you as
enough
chair
time
need,
to
yeah.
and then I would compile it, of course, but that's enough time, right? 2 weeks to
Yeah, I think 2
get that
weeks.
done?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
okay. that
Just
sounds-
recognizing that we don't get 2 weeks. We get like a week and maybe a day or two, so you have
To
the
give me
opportunity.
a little more
yeah.
time, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And is
Sure.
Lou still available to help with that?
Yeah, she'll do the Teach Point part,
So
like the online
so
formatting.
Lou Boudiette.
Well, what part is that, setting it up, or?
Yeah, so she usually will set it up and give us new passwords every year. We get new passwords. She'll have
okay.
to get Leora an account. So she kind of
Okay.
does all the back end stuff to make it easier for
Oh,
you.
okay,
And then
okay.
you can work with her and she'll answer any questions. And I mean, it walks you through.
Yeah.
But Lou is a great resource.
I'm
and I
glad you remembered
recommend, making sure that you utilize. But she's the one who has to set up the accounts and stuff. So Jay, maybe you can reach out to
Yep.
her and make sure, because we get a new one every year.
Right, got it.
So reach out to her and then copy me, maybe, so we can
Yep,
connect?
she's got it down pat. I will.
Okay, awesome.
Super easy, Leora.
Okay. Anything else on that we need to do? I think that's it, right? Okay, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Jay. Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Came up so quickly.
I know, this year, oh my gosh. How? We're gonna have seniors in a few weeks. How's that? All right, anything else on the agenda, future agenda? We're good? Soon we'll start to talk about the agenda for next year. That's coming up really quickly. Approval of minutes, we have the minutes from March 28th, 2023. I'm happy to say that we're caught up, which is amazing. So with that, I will entertain a motion if anyone so desires to approve those minutes.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the minutes? Comments? Edits? None? All right, see none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as is?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have 4. Thank you very much. I didn't see a warrant. We don't have a warrant tonight, right?
There
There are?
no,
Okay, I'm
maybe I
looking in
didn't
the,
put 'em
sorry, I'm
in.
looking online and.
Maybe I didn't include them.
It might be in the book. I didn't.
I thought I had,
look,
I thought
okay.
I had seen it, and then it wasn't there anymore, so I assumed you'd.
okay,
pulled it back.
we can hold till the 25th. That's not a problem. I didn't take them out, but somebody must have.
Okay, yeah, just checking.
It's in the book, but I think if we haven't had a chance to review, then we should,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we shouldn't do it.
Just wait.
Yeah, I was just looking to see
That's
where they
weird.
ended up, so I know where to
In the
look.
PDF.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I put these, but,
All right, so there's nothing,
Didn't even look there.
no,
Nothing
totally fine.
okay.
Yeah, no,
All
when I
right, we'll
sign it.
reserve
Sorry about
those for
that.
next time,
And
so we'll just
review
make sure
anyway.
that we put those in the packet for next time then. Okay, policy, we're gonna skip over this one tonight. It's been suggested that we get some additional information, so I know we're in the second, review phase, but, we'll have we're getting some more information about the terms of the dress code and we'll meet as a policy committee probably to discuss it. We'll see, what we need to do, but, might come back and see where we need to go with that, but I think we're gonna present it again, probably at the next meeting. Any other member reports?
You want to report on the meeting we just had?
Sure. Yeah, without commenting on specific things that the kids said, don't like to get into that. But
Oh, no,
general.
I meant our meeting.
Oh, our meeting.
With the select board and the finance committee.
The essay, we had 2 meetings this evening. One with Senator Michael Moore, where we joined the select board and the finance committee. And then we had the SAC meeting, the Student Advisory Council. And, Amy, do you want to go ahead and, do you want to give the report on our meeting with?
Sure, we didn't
Senator
say
Moore?
much. Senator Moore listened for 50 minutes or so to us complain about the state of funding education in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, how difficult it is and continues to be, and especially towns the size of Grafton, and with the property values and income that we have, which are basically why we're being penalized by this formula. Basically, it's just not equitable across the state. It's a recipe for disaster. And he talked about all the different funding priorities they have, and that's great. But I feel like the Commonwealth has got to step up and prioritize education funding for everybody, or all of these wonderful businesses that they're recruiting to come into the Commonwealth are not going to have any educated workforce. That's 20 years from now, that's what we're looking at. There won't be jobs for kids because the kids won't be able to do them because we've underfunded education so badly and fallen down. And I'm not talking about Grafton specifically, I'm talking in general. The money that is going to some of these larger districts, it's not making a difference. The growth isn't there, right? You look at the data, the growth data that we just talked about, actually. They're pouring all of these millions of dollars into these larger communities because they need it, but the students aren't growing. So what does that say? How they're spending their money isn't being maybe checked. I didn't say that in the meeting, but I wanted to. Senator Moore's going to go back. He's on Ways and Means. House presents their version of the budget this week. Hopefully we see an increase in the per pupil spending number, more than 30. And that's the increase, not the actual amount.
Yeah.
We'd love to see it at 100 or more, but we'll see. I don't have high hopes anything's going to change this year, but maybe I'll be wrong.
You have to have high hopes.
Did they mention anything? So I'm more concerned about the circuit breaker funding than the per pupil spending, because that really doesn't, I mean, it's great, but
He did mention
Did
that
he
there's a
mention
bill
that?
for, you're talking about out-of-district
Yeah.
tuition? Yes, there is at least one bill. He couldn't tell, or you said it.
Yeah, I think you're talking about two different
Yeah.
things.
Oh, we are.
Circuit breaker, it looks like it's gonna be 75%.
Okay.
And that's what they're obligated to do. We don't think it's gonna go above that. There is a bill and a huge push from MASs, probably MASC as well, about, since 2011, there's been every year, a 2% increase for out-of-district tuitions, which are super high anyhow. Last year, OSD changed it from 2% to 14% across the state. So there's going to be a bill to cover that 12% difference for all districts. For us, that's about 210,000. So we did speak about that tonight.
Thank you, that's what I meant. I meant that.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. Yeah.
It was a good meeting. He was presented with a lot of data. I saw him taking notes, which was positive. I was glad that he was, taking in some of
He
his.
didn't write down your quote, though.
He didn't?
No, he did not.
No, he's heard it before. It was ingrained. It made that impression. He didn't need to write it down.
Well, I'm glad you saw him taking notes. I just didn't come out of it with a positive feeling. The other side of the discussion was about the formula, and the problem's the formula. And we said 20 years ago this wasn't going to work, and we told you so. It's like, I don't want to hear we told you so. I want to hear we're going to start to look at this formula ahead of 2027, which is when they've said to look at it again. We can't wait that long. That's just, it's unacceptable to me that they know it's broken. They've been told it's broken, and they're not going to fix it until 2027, or even start to look at fixing it, which means, go ahead, sorry, I'm
No,
ranting.
I think it was good that we met with both the representative and the senator. Made sure that they both know that our eyes are on this, that we're, we'll think positive, but I think it was good to have this meeting. We were the first people to meet with Senator Moore, which I thought was nice. Okay, do you want to say anything about the we had an SAC meeting?
We did, it was great. We had good attendance. Students gave us good feedback. Kristen was there. So, we always appreciate hearing from them. It's great.
Great ideas about how to better communicate out to the students and, sort of grounding us as to, sort of where they spend their time. So where, the school can best communicate, things that are happening and resources. So I thought that was great.
We had an action item where a student is going to spearhead communicating out to her peers for grade level activities, so it was great.
I mentioned that they might be able to get community service hours for that, so. But
whether required or not, it inspires them. So,
I was impressed by that. I was really
Yeah.
impressed.
Yeah.
I like somebody who takes action and, and I mean, we've just been fortunate. It's been a great group.
How many attendees did you have tonight?
Quite a few. Five, six.
Okay.
Don't-
So some people
Six.
came back who, we only had 2 last time.
Yeah.
so-
No, they came. It was great. Some people we hadn't seen in a while
Yep.
came, so it was nice to hear some new voices. Anvita was there, which was
Good.
great.
Sophomore.
Couple sophomores.
Mhm.
Yeah, they were, it was great. Yeah. Best meeting of my day. So,
Any
I mean, until this one.
I was
Sorry.
just going to ask.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Up until now. Up until now.
Sugar gut. Okay. Any other reports? No? Okay. Correspondence, I'll just say generically, we did have, I think I shared with everyone, we did have one letter from a student, so we don't normally talk about those, but I shared it with the committee. It was very, very nice, and I did get back to the student and thank them for their participation and their input, and I thought it was very nice and well written. So I encourage everyone to keep doing that. We're expecting some more. I think there's a project. It's time.
I
for the
received quite a
middle
few.
s- Was it the middle school project? Okay.
They haven't done theirs
So we'll
yet.
be getting
Oh, yeah, only high school so far, for me,
Yeah, middle
anyhow,
school.
but I probably
Okay.
had a dozen.
civics projects are coming, so
Yeah.
we'll get some more. We're
They
looking
were
forward
very
to
good.
getting some more student correspondence, which is great. I don't believe we need executive session tonight. Is that correct? Yes. Okay, anything else before I entertain a motion to adjourn? Then I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Wow.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Good night, Grafton.